15 years of service, 15 years filled with fires, rescues, and sleepless nights. You'd think by now I'd be used to the attention, but something about that particular evening made my skin crawl beneath the uniform. Maybe it was the loud band or the whiskey that went down too smooth. Maybe it was the way Celeste smiled, like she'd rehearsed it 100 times in front of a mirror. "My hero," she'd said, raising her glass, that sapphire top catching every flash of the bar's lights. To Mason, 15 years of saving the city one fire at a time. The room erupted in cheers. I smiled and nodded, pretending I didn't dissect every word, every posture, and every glance she threw. It wasn't just how she looked. It was the aura around her, sharp, polished, flawless, and entirely fake. Celeste had always been magnetic. Too magnetic, if I'm being honest. She was the type of woman who could cast a glance across a room and make everyone feel like they were part of something extraordinary. But tonight, her charm felt different. Overdone. Then the band struck up our song. Some cheesy 80s tune that had been playing the day I got promoted to lieutenant. The crowd cheered, people clapped. Someone slammed a fist on the table. Celeste laughed, her giggles sounding genuine. I felt nothing. I excused myself mostly to get some fresh air. The men's room was one of those narrow, echoey spaces with flickering lights and paper towels always out of reach. I leaned over the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and just stood there, trying to shake the strange sensation clinging to me like smoke after a long shift. And then she walked in. A woman, probably in her early 40s, dressed in a Navy janitor's uniform with the name Stacy stitched over her heart. But she didn't look like a janitor. Her steps were too fast, her face too tense. She shut the door behind her, glanced around once, then locked it. "This is the men's," I started. "Mason Hale," she interrupted, her voice tight, full of panic. "Yeah," she stepped closer. "Don't drink what your wife handed you." I stared at her, my heart skipping a beat. "What?" "The drink she gave you," she repeated. "Don't drink it. She's tampered with it." "What the hell are you talking about?" But she didn't answer. She turned, unlocked the door, and left as quickly as she came in. No punchline, no explanation, just vanished. I stood there frozen, not because I believed her, not yet, but because something in her voice, the way she looked at me, made it impossible to brush off as some kind of joke. I walked back out into the bar, and everything seemed the same. Laughter, glasses clinking, my buddies joking around by the dartboard. Celeste at our table, chatting with Garrett. And there it was, my glass right where I'd left it, amber and untouched. She caught my eye, smiling too quickly, waving me over. And I smiled back, every muscle in my face feeling off. I didn't sit. I stood behind her, nodded to Garrett, and made a joke about needing a refill. Celeste laughed, reaching for her glass instead. Before she could grab it, I grabbed mine and swapped them. Subtle, clean, no reaction from her. "Be right back," I said, and walked to the bar, my heart racing. Was it real? Was she really trying to hurt me? I didn't know, but I knew this. If someone was setting a fire under my feet, I wasn't going to stick around and let it burn. I watched from the bar, holding a drink in my hand, with no intention of drinking it. From here, I had a clear view of Celeste's table. She was smiling again. That same perfect smile that now felt like a mask glued to her face. Garrett leaned in, laughing at something she said. Or maybe she laughed first, and he followed. Either way, it was rehearsed. Too tight, too perfect. Then she took a sip. Not from her glass, but from mine. I didn't know what I was expecting. A dramatic collapse? A choking fit? But it didn't happen like that. That's not how these things go, is it? First, nothing changed. She kept laughing, kept flipping her hair like she was starring in some soap opera nobody asked for. But after a few minutes, it began. Subtle at first. A blink that lasted a second too long. A strange giggle at something that wasn't funny. Her hand missed the edge of the wine glass by a hair, and Garrett had to stop it from tipping. I watched, feeling like I was standing outside my own body. Garrett must have noticed it too, the shift. He put a hand on her shoulder, leaned in like he was trying to figure out if she was drunk or something worse. Celeste waved him off, laughing again. But the laugh was slurred. Her eyes fluttered. Her mouth moved a beat behind her words. I walked over slowly, steady, calm. Just a concerned husband. "You okay, babe?" I asked, setting a hand gently on her back. Celeste turned her head toward me, blinking as if she was trying to remember who I was. "Oh, there you are," she said, her voice syrupy and slow. Everything's spinning. Isn't that funny? Garrett shifted in his seat. Maybe she had too much to drink. Maybe, I said, forcing a smile. Or maybe she's just tired. It's been a long night. Celeste giggled again, then mumbled something about needing to lie down and try to stand. She collapsed into Garrett's lap. He caught her, clearly uncomfortable, but she just leaned into him, giggling like they were at a middle school dance. I held out my hand. Come on, honey. Let's get some fresh air. No, I like it here, she said, resting her cheek on Garrett's shoulder. He smells like sandalwood. Did you know that, Garrett? You smell fancy. He turned red, looked at me, embarrassed. She's just tired. I kept my smile fixed. It's okay, I said. She gets affectionate after a few drinks. We'll head out soon. I sat down next to her, pulling her gently back onto her seat. She slumped against me, her muscles relaxed and eyes glazed. I glanced at my phone. Mason, I need a favor. Fast. Mason, Celeste. Garrett. Full surveillance. Go deep. Mason, don't ask. Just do it. I didn't wait long. Dean, already on it. Been waiting for you to wake up. Dean's my cousin. Ex-military. Used to do intelligence work the Army pretends never existed. Now he builds custom surveillance kits for private clients who don't ask too many questions. I helped him once, pulled some strings when the VA gave him trouble over benefits. In return, he once told me, if you ever need the truth, not the story, not the excuse, just the truth, call me. This was me calling in the debt. Celeste leaned her head on my shoulder, sighing like we were newlyweds on a romantic getaway. You smell like smoke, she murmured. Not like Garrett, she added. I looked at her. Her pupils were too wide, her breathing too slow. She was on something. Something real. Not just wine. Not nerves. She tried sitting up again, but her head drooped forward. Garrett stood awkwardly. I should head out, he said. She needs rest. I met his gaze, locking eyes. You're right. She does. He blinked at my tone, but stayed quiet. Celeste waved her hand weakly in the air. New stay? We should do yoga. That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Yoga. Thursday nights. The excuse she always gave. I tucked that word away like a knife in my back pocket. As Garrett left, I sat next to my wife and stared at the shell of the woman I once thought I knew. She was half-conscious, drooling slightly, mumbling to herself. She did this to me. She drugged my drink. And the only reason I was still sitting here, aware, breathing, was because some stranger had risked enough to walk into a men's bathroom and warn me. I held Celeste's hand gently as she slumped against me. She thought she was in control. That's where she messed up. Because I've spent 15 years running into burning buildings. I know exactly what it looks like before everything goes up in flames. And tonight, I smelled smoke. I kept the act up for the rest of the weekend. Celeste stayed in bed most of Saturday, claiming a migraine. I made her toast, brought her water, stroked her hair while she mumbled about how weird she felt the night before. She said she must have had too much wine. I nodded like I believed her. Our daughter Ivy was away for the weekend, on a school field trip to Boston. Thank God. She didn't need to see any of this. Didn't need to notice how her mom dragged herself around the house like a shadow of her former self. Or the way I lingered outside our bedroom door at night, unsure if I'd be able to sleep beside her without jumping out of bed every time she shifted. I've seen things in my line of work, accidents, loss, betrayal. But this was something else. It wasn't like watching a building collapse. It was like finding out the blueprint was a lie all along. That night, while Celeste slept on the couch with a heating pad and a glass of ginger ale, I slipped into the garage and opened the tool drawer. Not for a wrench. For the GPS tracker I bought years ago and never used. It was time to stop wondering. By 1 a.m., her SUV had a new passenger under the bumper, barely visible, even if you knew where to look. Took me less than 10 minutes. No nerves. Just calm. Like sliding into gear before a call. By 2, I was going through her gym bag in the laundry room. She always kept it zipped. Said it was just easier that way. But nothing about her life seemed easy to me anymore. Tucked in the lining of the camera pouch she hadn't touched in months was a burner phone. Old model. No fingerprint unlock. I powered it on with shaking fingers and watched as the screen lit up with one message after another. Garrett, I miss you already. Thursday feels too far. Garrett, same time next week. Rooms booked. Garrett, did you tell him yet? My hand went cold. I scrolled through weeks of messages. Most were short. All were damning. Mentions of fake names. Meetups. Jokes about how careful I was, how I'd never know. Some texts were older, months even. The affair had been going on longer than I'd imagined. The planning, the ease of it, that hurt more than I expected. By the time morning light cracked through the blinds, I had made 2 decisions. 1, I wasn't confronting her yet. And 2, I needed backup. Dean came through that afternoon. The package arrived in a plain envelope, dropped at the firehouse like it was just another routine supply order. I waited until the house was quiet, and Ivy was back in her room upstairs before I opened it in the den. Inside was a flash drive, a printed packet, and a sticky note. Dean, you're not paranoid. You're late to the party. I plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding in my throat. First were the GPS logs. Every Thursday afternoon, her car pinged in the exact same spot. A private villa-style resort outside of town. Discreet. Easy to pay for with cash or preloaded gift cards. No paper trail. Dean had tracked the logins, even snagged security cam footage from the parking lot. There she was, clear as day. Celeste stepping out of her car in sunglasses and a floppy hat. Garrett already waiting, holding open the room door. They always hugged first. She always laughed, even from a distance. Once she even skipped. Like a teenager. I watched it all. Every frame. Thursday after Thursday. In one clip, Garrett handed her a coffee, then touched her back as they walked in. In another, she leaned against him, her hands sliding into his jacket pocket like they'd done it 100 times. The timestamp on that one was the same week she told me she was volunteering for a yoga seminar. She never even owned a mat. And then there was the audio file. Dean had managed to bug one of the rooms, God knows how, and got a 30-minute recording. I almost didn't open it. I didn't think I could stomach it. But I did. And it wasn't what I expected. There was laughter. Jokes. But then Garrett asked, "When are you going to do it?" Celeste replied, "Soon. I needed to be clean." He said something I couldn't make out, and then her voice, crystal clear. "I just want him gone. I'm tired of being the good wife to a man who makes everything about duty. He'll never see it coming." I paused the recording. I sat back in my chair. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I just stared at the wall, trying to remember if I'd ever really known the woman who shared my house, my bed, my child. Because the voice I just heard, it wasn't Celeste. Not the woman I married. It was someone else. Someone dangerous. I closed the laptop, slid the drive into the drawer, sat in the dark for a long, long time. Then I pulled out my notebook and started planning. It was a Saturday, clear skies and just the right amount of breeze to make the grill smoke drift off instead of clinging to everyone's clothes. Our new neighbors were there. The guys from the station. Some friends of Celeste from her book club or yoga group or whatever cover she'd been using lately. The housewarming barbecue had been Celeste's idea. Said we needed something normal to reset things. I agreed, of course. Smiled. Told her it was a great idea. Ivy helped set up the tables in the backyard. We hung string lights, put out chips and music, fired up the grill. It all looked perfect. That was the point. Around 6, the yard was full. Ivy was laughing with some of the other teens near the fire pit. Garrett showed up fashionably late, wearing a button-up shirt and those smug sunglasses he thought made him look cooler than he was. Celeste was glowing, dressed in white linen, barefoot on the grass, wine glass always half full. I watched them. How close they stood. How she touched his arm like it was an accident. How he always laughed a little too hard at her jokes. The part of me that used to feel jealous was gone. All that was left now was calculation. Quiet, methodical, precise. I waited until the grill was cooling down and people were leaning into their second drinks. Ivy had just sat down with a plate of food. The band had taken a break, and the playlist from my phone filled the silence with a soft acoustic version of our song. Perfect timing. I stood up, tapped my glass with a fork and smiled. "Hey, everyone," I said. "Appreciate y'all being here tonight. It means a lot." A few cheers. Some claps. Ivy looked over and grinned. "Most of you know I hit 15 years with the firehouse last week. It's been a hell of a ride. Fires, floods, a couple of cats and trees. I've seen it all." Polite chuckles. "I've also seen what loyalty looks like. What integrity means. What family is supposed to be. And I've learned that sometimes when things go wrong, the fire doesn't start in the kitchen." Now it was quiet. Just the music and the wind tugging gently at the edges of the tablecloths. "So I'd like to raise a toast," I said, lifting my glass. "To Garrett." Everyone turned. Garrett blinked. Celeste froze. Who's been keeping my wife company every Thursday for the past 8 months? The silence was immediate and deep, like someone had unplugged the world. Glasses paused midair. Mouths hung open. A few people glanced toward Celeste. Others looked away, pretending they hadn't heard. Ivy stared at me, blinking in confusion. Garrett's fiancée, yes, fiancée Molly, let out a sharp gasp. Her wine glass slipped and hit the patio with a crack. No one moved to pick it up. Celeste finally spoke. Mason, what are you? I held up my hand. It's okay. You don't have to say anything. I brought handouts. From the bench by the fence, I grabbed the folder I'd tucked beneath the throw pillow earlier. I flipped it open and pulled out the contents. Printed photos. Credit card receipts. GPS logs. Fake names used for check-ins at the villa. Even stills from the security footage. I handed copies to the first people near me and let them pass them around. Garrett's name was on the receipts. Celeste's handwriting on a note that said, Room 14, 3 p.m. Don't forget the wine. Ivy's face crumpled. What? She whispered. Molly looked like someone had ripped the floor out from under her. She stared at Garrett, shaking her head in disbelief. Celeste recovered fast. You're being dramatic, she snapped. This is disgusting. A public ambush? Grow up. Oh, I'm just getting started, I said calmly. Would you like to explain what you meant when you told Garrett you needed me gone? Or should I play the audio? What audio? She snapped. I record everything now, I said. After that night at the bar, it seemed smart. That stranger who warned me in the bathroom? She saved my life. You really should be more careful when you're mixing things into drinks. That got a reaction. One of Celeste's friends gasped. Another backed away from her slowly. Celeste scoffed, but I could see the color draining from her face. You're out of your mind, she muttered. You said. I continued, reading from the transcript I printed. I just want him gone. I'm tired of being the good wife to a man who makes everything about duty. He'll never see it coming. She spun on her heel. You're twisting things. You always do. You make yourself out to be some martyr, like you're so noble and loyal. Please. You were safe. You were boring. This thing with Garrett, at least it felt like something real. You know what else feels real? I said, reaching into my jacket. This? I pulled out the pre-signed divorce papers. Already filed, I said. And here's the kicker. I've had the deed to this house transferred solely to my name for 4 months. So after tonight, you'll be leaving. Ivy gasped. Celeste took a step forward, her voice low and sharp. You son of a... Don't finish that, I said. Not here. Not in front of our daughter. Celeste looked around, realizing, maybe for the first time, that nobody was backing her up. That even her friends had fallen silent. That Garrett was slumped against the fence, holding his head in his hands. His relationship, his reputation, and maybe even his career evaporating by the second. She turned to Ivy. But Ivy stood, her voice small but steady. I don't want to go with you, she said. I don't even want to look at you. Celeste's mouth opened, then closed. And for the first time since that night at the bar, I felt steady, grounded. The fire had burned through. All that was left was ash. And from here, I could rebuild. The next morning, Celeste was gone. Not gone like dead, though I'd be lying if I said the idea hadn't crossed my mind the night before after what she tried to do. No, she was gone like disappeared. Vanished. No goodbye to Ivy. No note. No suitcases. Just silence. I found her key on the kitchen counter next to her half-empty mug of tea. I called Dean that afternoon. He told me her phone had pinged near Garrett's condo across town. Then it shut off. Looks like they're laying low, he said. Good. I replied and meant it. The house felt bigger without her. Lighter. Even Ivy noticed. Is it weird that it feels better now? She asked me one night, sitting on the floor of the living room with her sketch pad and a bowl of cereal. Like, even the air? No, I said. That's not weird at all. We started small. Got rid of the fake plants Celeste insisted on. Then the throw pillows that never served any purpose. Then the hideous glass swan collection she'd stacked on the bookshelf to add elegance. It was like shedding old skin. I repainted the kitchen, cleaned out the garage, donated most of her clothes without a second thought. Ivy helped with the closet, pulling out dress after dress with a look of contempt. That surprised me. She always bought these like she was going to some awards show. Ivy muttered, tossing one sequin number into the donate pile. Even wore heels to the grocery store. She said it with venom, but her eyes were wet. I didn't say anything. Just gave her shoulder a squeeze. Grief was weird like that. It didn't matter that Celeste had betrayed us both. Ivy still had to unlearn the idea of her mother as someone worth admiring. That kind of pain doesn't go away overnight. But each day, the weight got lighter. I took a week off work. Told the firehouse I needed time. No one questioned it. Word had spread fast after the barbecue. Guys I barely knew sent me texts. One of the captains dropped off a case of beer and didn't say a word. Just gave me a nod like, yeah, man, I heard. Garrett's fiancée Molly sent me a message too. Just one line. Thank you for telling the truth. It saved me years of pretending. I never replied. Didn't feel like I needed to. Garrett? He vanished. Quit his job 2 days after the party. Rumor was his family had cut him off. Something about a trust fund with a morals clause. Not my concern. I was busy making my house a home again. Dean helped me install new locks. I transferred full utilities and accounts under my name. I even met with a lawyer and made sure everything, custody, property, all of it, was lined up. Celeste didn't contest anything. Not once. Maybe she knew she had no ground to stand on. Maybe Garrett had convinced her to lie low and wait it out. Or maybe deep down, she was embarrassed. But I doubt it. Narcissists don't get embarrassed. They get quiet, and then they come back swinging. So I stayed ready, just in case. But instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop, I focused on Ivy. She started painting again. Real stuff, not just school projects. She taped the pages to the walls of her bedroom like her own little gallery. Started sleeping through the night again. Ate better. Smiled more. Her laugh came easier. One night, I found her watching old videos on her tablet. Us at the lake. Celeste filming. Me chasing Ivy through the water. The sound of her mom's laughter in the background. She paused it and looked at me. Was she always like that? I didn't lie. No, I said. But she was never as good as she wanted us to think. Ivy nodded. Didn't cry. Just hit delete on the video. Later that night, I was sorting through some of the junk in the closet when I found an old letter Celeste had written to me years ago, before Ivy was born. It talked about dreams, about family, about loyalty. I ripped it up and dropped it into the trash without a second thought. I wasn't mourning a marriage anymore. I was detoxing from a delusion. And the strangest thing? It didn't even hurt. It felt like pulling a thorn you didn't know was buried deep under your skin. There was no dramatic breakdown, no emotional collapse. Just relief. Pure, quiet relief. Celeste had wanted me gone. Wanted me drugged, broken, maybe worse. She lost everything. And I was still here. Still standing. Still me. And I'd never felt more alive. Lena started stopping by about a week after the fallout. At first, I thought it was just about Ivy. She'd always been polite. One of those hello, goodbye people at gatherings. I'd never had a real conversation with her beyond the surface stuff. But after everything exploded, she texted me one afternoon. Lena, hey, thought I'd check on Ivy. Need anything? I didn't answer right away, mostly because I didn't know how. Garrett's sister? Really? But I told her Ivy was fine, that we were managing. She came by anyway. She showed up with pizza and those soft chocolate chip cookies Ivy liked. The ones with the sea salt flakes on top. Ivy was already back to painting by then. Headphones in, barefoot in her oversized hoodie. Lena didn't stay long that time. Just waved and smiled and told me to hang in there. The next day, she texted again. Lena, want company? I may kill her lemonade. I stared at the message for a long minute, then wrote back. Me, sure. Just not the frozen kind in a can. That stuff's a crime. She showed up with fresh lemons, sugar, and one of those old school glass pitchers. No makeup. Worn jeans. Simple t-shirt. She looked more real in that moment than Celeste had in years. We drank lemonade on the porch while Ivy painted in the backyard. The conversation started light, music, movies, things you could talk about without flinching. But somewhere between the second and third glass, she asked me something I hadn't been expecting. Do you miss her? I looked out over the yard. Ivy had started a new canvas, shades of red and gray swirling across the page. Which version of her? I asked. The one I thought I had, or the one I actually did? Lena didn't say anything for a moment. Just nodded. I get that, she said. I think I've spent my whole life watching Garrett pretend to be someone better than he is. And I let him. You're not responsible for his choices, I said. No, she replied. But I didn't call him out either. Not when I should have. We didn't say much after that. Just sat the lemonade pitcher between us and let the silence settle. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt human. Quiet, not awkward. That kind of silence only exists when two people know they don't have to perform. After that, she came by more often, sometimes with dinner, sometimes just to sit. She brought Ivy a set of new brushes and some blank canvases one day. Said she found them on sale, but I could tell she'd picked them out carefully. One night, Ivy had already gone to bed when Lena stayed a little longer than usual. We ended up watching a rerun of some dumb sitcom on the couch, both of us too tired to change the channel. Somewhere around midnight, I realized we'd both dozed off. My head was tilted back. Hers was on my shoulder. No tension, no rush, just quiet. I woke her up gently. She blinked, yawned, and looked embarrassed. "Guess I overstayed," she said. "You didn't," I replied. That was it. No big moment. No kiss. No spark flying through the room like a movie script. Just peace. And I hadn't felt that in a long, long time. A couple days later, Celeste showed up. Ivy was at a friend's house. Lena had just left. I was doing laundry of all things when I heard the knock. When I opened the door, there she was. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Eyes red. She held a manila envelope in her hand and a soft, pathetic smile on her face. "Hey," she said. "Can we talk?" I didn't move. She swallowed. "I don't even know where to start." "Try with 'I'm sorry," I said. "I am," she said too quickly. "But it's more complicated than that. I didn't mean for any of this." "You did," I cut in, my voice flat. "You meant it when you looked me in the eye and handed me poison. You meant it when you lied to her daughter. And you meant it every single Thursday afternoon when you climbed into Garrett's bed." Her jaw clenched. She looked like she wanted to protest, but couldn't find the words. "You ended it, Celeste," I said, calmer now. "I'm just finalizing it." I stepped aside just enough to show her what she already knew. That this wasn't her home anymore. That she didn't belong here. "Ivy doesn't want to see you," I added. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'm not going to force her. Can I at least leave this?" She held up the envelope. "What is it?" "A letter. For her." I took it without looking inside. She lingered for a second too long. "You know, Mason," she said finally, "you weren't easy to love." "I never asked you to love me," I replied. "Just to be honest." She gave a sad little nod, then turned and walked away. I stood in the doorway for a while, envelope in hand, heart steady. She was right about one thing. I wasn't easy to love. But maybe that was because I'd spent too long loving someone who only ever saw me as a backup plan. Now I had peace. And in that moment, it was enough. It came in the mail, of all things. An actual envelope. Thick, white, and expensive-looking with my full name printed in embossed gold letters across the front. No return address, but the moment I touched it, I knew. Celeste. Ivy was upstairs working on a school project. The house was quiet, soft sunlight coming through the kitchen window. I poured myself a cup of coffee and opened the envelope like I was defusing a bomb. Inside was an ornate wedding invitation. Swirling fonts. Ivory cardstock. A watercolor sketch of a vineyard in the background. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Celeste Marie Whitaker and Garrett Alenro." I stared at the words blinking. And then I saw the note, handwritten in Celeste's familiar loopy cursive clipped to the inside of the envelope. "No hard feelings. Hope you and Ivy can join us." I stood there for a long time, the paper in one hand, the coffee cooling in the other. The man who was introduced to me as just a family friend. The man who smiled at me across my own dinner table while secretly sleeping with my wife. And now she wanted us to attend their wedding like we were guests at a high school reunion. Like we were all grown-ups. Like this was just life, and people move on, and everything's fine. A few hours later, Lena dropped by to return a book Ivy had borrowed. She came in through the side gate like she always did now, knocking softly on the back door before letting herself in. She brought tea this time, and some peanut butter brownies Ivy had apparently raved about the week before. I set the invitation down on the counter and watched her eyes catch on it. She picked it up slowly. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "Came in the mail this morning. I even got the handwritten bonus note." Lena scanned it, then rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stay that way. "No hard feelings? She really has no shame." I gave a quiet laugh and reached under the sink for the old metal bin I kept for yard waste and scrap. "What are you doing?" she asked. I held up a pack of matches. "Taking out the trash." We went into the backyard. The pit was already full of dried leaves and bark Ivy had collected during one of her nature cleanups. I tossed the invitation in without ceremony and struck a match. The flame caught fast. the edges curled inward, the fancy gold letters turning black in an instant. Lena stood beside me, arms crossed, watching in silence. When it was almost ash, I said, "You ever seen two arsonists blame the fire?" She laughed. Not a loud one, just that breathy kind of laugh that says, "Yep, I've been there." "They deserve each other," she said. Two liars, both convinced they're the victims. We went inside and sat down for dinner.